Hello, hello. It has been a very long time, and my throat has finally returned to me. It is no longer inflamed, it is deflamed. Hopefully it remains that way today or this evening. It's midnight, so let's see how my throat fares. Um, man, I'm looking forward to seeing how this case goes forward because obviously, but I don't really have many comments. I can't actually remember much. I'm gonna have to read through the evidence again, and figure things out. It's been many weeks. Um, yep. Might need to refill my bottle halfway through. Okay, so I'll start with the court record. So the body appeared in the tower, and the screwdriver is supposedly the murder weapon, is that right? He fell. Now, they're saying that he fell because he was beamed too high. Obviously, the machine doesn't work, and we're going to have to prove that it doesn't work. Um, mhm. Got some glass. There is the issue of how he did actually move. I Let me read the transcript as well. I feel like that's going to be more insightful. I'll go from the very top because it has been many weeks. Right. It would seem your illusions have been shattered. Clearly, we should hear the accused's explanation. Or should I say, this brilliant scientist's explanation? Just when I'd found an inconsistency in the prosecution's argument. Scientists.
Very well, the defendant will testify again. Provide us with the scientific explanation as to why the inconsistency asserted by the defense fails to hold.
Eureka! In the name of Apollo, I will, my lord. My marvellous invention! To be clear, I'm still at the stage of gathering data in my research. My hypothesis states the kinesis cannot transport metal, though, hence the metal weapon would have stayed put. In other words, the point just raised by Mr. Naruhodo isn't an inconsistency at all. Mr. Asman was the patron of my research. Without him, my work wouldn't have been possible. Now I have a duty to protect the incredible machine that we built together.
So, the thrust of your testimony, Professor, is
that based upon his hypothesis, metal objects cannot be moved by this method of instantaneous kinesis.
In other words?
In other words, since the screwdriver is made of metal, even if it remained lodged in the victim's chest. No big deal. No. Nobody's just... No, nobody notices. It's just... Who cares, right? Its subsequent discovery on the stage, despite the victim being found elsewhere, is not an inconsistency.
And therefore?
And therefore, Professor Albert Hairbrain could still have been the killer. My great hypothesis holds, you see. We had to make the cage used to contain the subject from wood for that very reason.
I was not addressing you, witness.
Professor Hairbrain? Yes! Whose side are you on here? I don't take sides, Mr. Naruhodo. No. My only interest lies in upholding my hypothesis. I'm a scientist, after all. Is he working for us or against us? Is he working for us or against us? It's very hard to tell. Let's see how you cross-examine this testimony, my Nipponese friend. Yes, fire away, Mr. Naruhodo. Eureka! And yet your retort to my argument wasn't lacking in confidence in any way. No scientist can find the truth without first finding self-belief. Those were the words of a certain scientist I hold in the very highest esteem. But you realise that disproving my argument puts you in a very precarious position, don't you? No scientist should have strived to protect himself more than he strives to protect the truth. More words of the same great scientist, you know. Words that are causing me a lot of trouble. Who is this scientist? I'm afraid I couldn't tell you, Mr. Naruhodo. But as soon as I remember the magnificent genius's name, you'll be the first to know. It might be worth keeping the names of your idols to mind. You're wasting your breath, my learned friend. This scatterbrain even forgets my name at times. So Lord Van Zyk's really did have a friend once, but I didn't notice hell freezing over. Hold it! Your hypothesis states it, so it isn't proven then. No, of course not. It's merely a hypothesis, but a good one, based upon thousands of calculations. But it is widely known that metals can't be decomposed by electrolysis. Yes, of course, so I am right. My hypothesis is clearly correct. What is it about incriminating himself that makes this man so happy? It's the whole reason that birdcage is made of wood, you see. Sorry, the birdcage? Yes, that's what I call the C. obtusa cage in which Mr. Asman was placed for the kinesis.
Ah, the jail cell in which the victim was detained. It does indeed seem to be made of timber of some sort.
I'll thank you not to refer to it as an instrument. I'll thank you not to refer to it as an instrument of incarceration, your lordship. In short, any weapon lodged in the victim when he was beamed away by instantaneous kinesis would have been left behind on the stage if it were made of metal. Correct? Yes, that's it! Yes, yes, yes! It all fits perfectly with the mathematical model! But
the ultimate conclusion, then, is that the defendant alone had the opportunity to inflict this fatal injury on the victim, is it not?
Oh!
Ah, indeed, sir.
Someone beam me out of this nightmare. Hold it! You seem to be pleased by that. Yes, another example of my hypothesis holding true. But I sense some sarcasm, Mr. Naruhodo. Are you not pleased? No. I knew it. At the end of the day, I'm the one responsible for Mr. Asman losing his life. The advancement of science is no excuse, I know that. No, you're quite right.
Tell the court, did you have a close relationship with Mr. Asman?
Oh, well, no, not really. I mean, I only met him 2 or 3 times. And we only ever discussed my hypothesis and the project. And the research grant, of course. Hold it! Hold it! How did you come to know Mr. Asman in the first place? A year ago now, a small provincial science journal published a little paper about my work. Sure it is little.
That's a scientific journal? Good gracious, I should need new spectacles.
I might have had an extraordinary hypothesis and great promise. But at the time, I had no money. I had to eat tiny little meals at a tiny little cafe and drink watered down water out of a tiny little glass. But Mr. Asman read the paper and came to visit me in my tiny little laboratory. And offered you money to help fund your work. Exactly, that's exactly what happened. I handled the theoretical side of things, and Mr. Asman provided me with an engineer for the practical. And the 3 of us produced that fantastic machine together. Who is the engineer? Why is she winking in her profile? The machine that you brought to the Great Exhibition to demonstrate. We had to apply it to the government for some sort of inspection to be allowed to exhibit, I think. I didn't understand all that side of things. Mr. Asman took care of all of it. He was a wonderful man. Really, I owe him everything. Why did he fund the research? Now I have a duty to protect the incredible machine that we built together. Hold it! Hold it. When you say that you built the machine together, does that mean that you were involved in its construction? Yes. Well, Not exactly. I'm not good with the practical side of machines myself, so the physical construction was done by an engineer. Little remains of your creation now, though. Following the explosion, repair will no doubt be impossible. Yes, I realise that, but still, if someone were to gather all the broken parts, they could discover the secret of my hypothesis. Mr. Asman and I toiled over that machine for so long. We put our hearts and souls into it. I have to protect our work. So what's left of the machine must be kept safe. That's only fair, because of what happened was an accident. That's the extent of the testimony then. Thank goodness for that. I don't want him doing any more damage. He's already basically proven that he could be the culprit. But it seems as though all he really cares about is defending his hypothesis. Still, I wonder. What if his hypothesis is just fundamentally flawed? Alright, scientist, what do you say to this?
Objection!
Objection! Professor Hairbrain, you say that according to your hypothesis, nothing made of metal can be beamed by instantaneous kinesis using the machine you made. Is that right? Yes, that's right. Spot on. Exactly correct. In that case, I'll ask you have a look at this photograph that was taken at the scene. In particular, I'd like you... namely, I'd like you to pay attention to the victim's face. You can clearly see that Mr. Asman is wearing a pair of spectacles with a metal rim. What? Metal? No, metal can't. That's not... metal? No! We've already established that the proposed murder weapon, the screwdriver, was found on the stage. However, if your hypothesis correctly predicted that outcome, it should also have predicted that the metal rim spectacles would be found in the same place. Oh! My hypothesis! My hypothesis! Professor Hairbrain, this isn't easy for me to say, but your hypothesis is clearly flawed. Oh!
Order. Counsel, what is the implication of this?
If, on the day in question, the alleged instantaneous kinesis never actually took place, then it's entirely possible that the victim was killed somewhere other than the stage. And in that case, someone other than the defendant could have been the culprit. But my hypothesis is sound. I proved it that day. The experiment was a success. The experiment was proof of all my work. Okay. I'll just give this guy a simple... Maybe I'll give him like a... No, raw... Okay, I can't give him a like Eastern voice. Eastern European voice, I mean. I want to do accents just because like I haven't had much chance to do accents. There's no... I have to give him like a boring voice, right?
If I could say something here in my capacity as a fellow of the Royal Society... Yes, juror number 4, go ahead. As a man of science, there's one thing I simply cannot abide. And that's a fraud who pretends to be a fellow man of science.
What? Wait, great Scott! Are you suggesting my science is suspect? I bet that juror is his idol.
Ah, it's just been disproved, hasn't it?
in front of all of us. In other words, the whole demonstration was a complete nonsense from start to finish. Believe me, my fellow jurors, when I tell you that this man is a heel, a bounder and a fraud. I say the wreckage of that machine should be stripped down and thoroughly examined. No, never! That machine is the essence of my entire hypothesis. It's protected by the Special Dispensation for Scientific Equipment Act.
What the devil is that blasted act all about, eh? Who made up such a daft rule?
I don't like the way this seems to be going. What's the best way for me to help the professor? Objection! Professor Harebrained has yet to perfect his invention. That would seem to be the case, yes. But even so... Even so, what? Going to such trouble and expense to create a fake machine to display in public? He would have absolutely no reason to do such a thing.
Objection!
Objection! He had an obvious reason to do exactly that. For the research grant money. Ugh! If the government was foolish enough to have deemed the man's ridiculous notion plausible, he and his conspirators would have received a handsome sum indeed. Conspirators? What would be the value of such a grant? £10? And you're an order of magnitude out, madam. £500 a year. Oh, wow! You could live handsome off that much for years. You could live handsomely off that for years. The Society's noticed an increase in bogus public demonstrations in the field of science recently. And plenty of scientists arguing with each other to get the largest slice of the funding cake. People's greed is plenty motive enough for murder, I assure you. No, no, no. I haven't deceived anyone, least of all the government. My hypothesis is sound. The science is sound. Please, you must believe me.
Objection!
Objection. No matter how unbelievable this hypothesis may seem to you, ladies and gentlemen, the fact remains that the victim was transported instantly to the Crystal Tower. Which means that the experiment was a success. Oh, Baroque! And therefore, the only person who could have possibly committed this murder is the accused. Oh, Baroque. Where is this heading? I have no idea. My lord, if I may.
Yes, Lord Van Tykes.
The prosecution would like to summon a new witness to the stand.
New witnesses? What would be the nature of their involvement?
They were spectators of the demonstration at the exhibition, who are occupying special seats. Eyewitnesses?
Very well. The court grants the prosecution's request. I should very much like to hear from an eyewitness to the incident.
The prosecution's stance is clear. The experiment was no pastiche. The accused killed the financier. The accused killed the financier victim there on the public stage, before the very eyes of the spectators. Now, my learned friend. Oh, yes? It's time for you to make your own stance clear. There's clearly a flaw in the professor's hypothesis. I can definitely see that. And Sholmes told me it was all a bunch of nonsense. Where does that leave me? Or was it Iris who told me? I can't even remember, it's been so long.
We shall take a short recess now, during which time the prosecution will prepare its new witnesses to take the stand. And I'd like to see the defense lawyer in my office for once, please. I want to see a new room.
No, not gonna happen, is it? As you wish, my lord.
Good. In that case, court is adjourned for 20 minutes.
Da-na. Da, 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 da. Mr. Naruhodo, what on earth were you playing at just now? Or rather, what on earth were you playing at all along? My hypothesis, my amazing hypothesis! You've been picking holes in it from the start! Ah, sorry about that. But you promised me! You said that you'd prove that dratted explosion was an accident, not murder! You said you'd keep my precious invention from falling into anyone else's hands! But all you've done so far is try to undermine me! Yes, I did make you a promise, you're right. I said that I'd believe in you and fight for your freedom to the very end. But I also told you I was no scientist. I don't understand your hypothesis. The fact is, there is an undeniable flaw in your logic, isn't there? Ah, but if I just run through some equations... Yes, you see, it's because my work isn't complete. Perhaps it is. Nevertheless, a man died as a consequence, didn't he? Oh. Oh no! You're right. You're so right. It's all my fault. And I have no right to blame you for all my failures. I'm a disaster. Not just as a scientist, but as a human being. Well, that might be a little over the top. And while we're on the subject, what about Parok? He's being awful. Claiming his old university friend to be a murderer, you mean? It's a disaster, not just as a prosecutor, but as a human being. Oh, but no, wait. He's the Reaper, isn't he? Perhaps he's not classified as Homo sapiens sapiens anymore. Glad that that's cleared up. Can I double check something with you? Oh, yes? What? The machine and demonstration you prepared, they were based entirely on your hypothesis, I presume. There was no trickery involved. I drew the plans for the machine with my very own hands. Every line was painstakingly drawn with the firm belief that science is the only future. So yes, it's true that my hypothesis hasn't reached maturity yet. But please, Mr. Naruhodo, you must believe in it. All right, Professor. I understand. Counsel, defendant. The prosecution witnesses are ready to take the stand. Court is about to be in session again. Make your way into the courtroom, please. It all hinges on that demonstration. If the professor's hypothesis is sound as he claims, it leaves him as the only person who could possibly have killed the victim. But on the other hand, Mr. Sholmes was adamant.
my dear fellow. A practical implementation, such as attempted by the professor at the Great Exhibition, is quite impossible.
So really, what should I be trying to prove here? That's interesting that we're working against our client's interests in one sense, not in another. What is the client's interest, right? When does the lawyer get to decide that the client's interests aren't what they say they are, right? Like, you know, if someone comes to you and it's like, you know, I've been accused of this, and this, and it's a conspiracy, right? Like, oh, the police are, well, I'm like, you know, oh, there's 10 witnesses who are all working against me, and the police have all forged the documents and stuff, right? Like, you know, it's not in the client's best interest to like try and take that argument to the courtroom, and yet, what is the, you know, are you supposed to do what your client wants you to do, or do what is best for them, right? And where's that grey line?
In the name of Her Majesty the Queen, I hereby reconvene the proceedings of this court. Counsel for the defense and prosecution, are you ready for the new witnesses to testify?
The prosecution is ready, my lord. As is the defense, my lord.
So, Lord Van Zykes, I believe these next witnesses saw the demonstration on the day in question with their own eyes.
Indeed, they did. And as luck would have it, one of them is a police detective. So the testimony we're about to hear can be considered highly reliable. Gina Lestrade. Perfect. A detective of all people. The prosecution's stance remains unchanged. Though it ended in tragedy, the demonstration on the day in question was scientifically sound. And consequently, the sole person with the opportunity to have committed this act of murder is the only other individual to have been present on the stage at the time, the accused.
Thank you, Counsel. The prosecution's position is clear. So, bring forth your witnesses now.
Bailiff, show the witnesses in. The witnesses whose proximity to the incident on the day in question will clarify the truth unequivocally. Oh, okay. More voices. Witnesses, state your names and occupations for the court to hear. Hot air balloon man, holy fuck. If he's hot air balloon man, I suppose I should give him an airy voice.
My name is Balthazar Loon. I am the impresario of all the hot air balloons in the vicinity of the Esperimento stage. Oh.
Is he also Italian?
I am the impresario of all the hot air balloons in vicinity of the Esperimento stage.
My name is Wilhelm Gottfried Siegmund Ormstein. I have come to see the Great Exhibition. Bohemia's a state of Germany, right? I'm gonna make sure my geography knowledge isn't. Yeah. Part of the Holy Road. Oh, yeah. Okay, sure. Okay.
My name is Balthazar Loon. I am the impresario of all the hot air balloons in the vicinity of the experimental stage.
My name is Wilhelm Godstrich. No, that's like Von Karma voice. 1 minute. Let me impresario. Define impresario. Yeah, it does come from Italian. A person who organizes and often finances concerts, plays, and operas. So he's the organizer and financier, probably. And this. My name is Wilhelm Gottfried Sigmund Ormstein. I have come to see the great exhibition all the way from my home in Bohemia. I'm very rich. I can't do a German accent, I just can't. I'm not good at it. Ormstein, I'm very rich. I'm just gonna wing it. Maybe I'll get used to it. Inspector Jane Lestrade, Scotland Yard. I'm a great detective. Even Sherlock Holmes agrees. I was on security duty at the exhibition, and I got to go up and in one of them balloons. It was amazing. Gina, again. She did mention that she'd seen the disaster from up in the balloon, actually, didn't she? She clearly loved every minute of it. There were 3 balloons flying near the public experimentation stage when the incident occurred. 2 of these witnesses were in one such balloon at the time and saw events unfold from the skies above.
You make it sound like they were in the clouds. It was only at an altitude of circa 60 feet. Very low.
Why am I giving him a high-pitched voice? I don't know.
Airy voice.
I don't fucking know, man.
Well, you can't say nothing if you fly too high, can ya?
60 feet? About 18 meters then.
Thank you for your introductions. Now, you will give your formal testimony to the court.
Bohemian boy.
Wilhelm Godstrich, Sigismund Ormstein.
Kindly describe exactly what you witnessed, especially those of you who had a vantage point above the stage. A vantage point above the stage.
It was an incident terrible. Terrible, Bill. I am only grateful for that my balloons were not damaged. There's this huge bang from the stage, and the next second, another bang in the sky beside us. And from amid the smoke, a cage appeared out of nowhere. The cage, it fell from the sky like a stone and crashed in the crystal tower. Impresario, the cage, it fell from the sky like a stone and crashed into the crystal tower. I didn't get a good look from inside the cage, but no one went near it after it crashed into the tower.
A most extraordinary collective account, I must say.
Can I just clarify something? There's a detail in the witness's testimony that I've not heard any mention of until now. Specifically, that there were 2 explosions. More precisely, 2 explosions in 2 separate places. Yes. When the demonstration began, the balloon carrying the 2 witnesses around was here. Was around here. There were other balloons in the air nearby at the time, carrying other passengers as well, to be clear. I'll be back in a minute. I just did that. I'm the guy who just did that. I'm that guy. Oh, fuck me. I'm not going back and reading it all again. I did a shit accent anyway. Fuck me.
Right, I can fill you in there, what? Right, I can fill you in there, my lord. There's this huge bang from the stage, and then on the next second, another bang from the sky beside us.
Hold it! Hold it. So you actually saw the accident happen from up in the air?
Yep, ain't it amazing what a detective gets to do, eh? I'm telling you, Otto, being a lawyer's a mug's game. You should join the force and we can go flying together.
You know me so well. Yes, well, anyway. Could you tell us exactly what you saw, do you think?
Everything. We saw everything, because we were up above it and all. That dodgy cove climbing into that cage, and that dodgy professor pulling all the levers. And that's when it happened. That's when there was that massive bang and the cage disappeared. Just like that.
She actually smiles in these models, which is... Aww.
You are describing the moment the subject's body was decomposed by the electricity, I believe.
Oh, I didn't know what to make of it. But then there was another bang right in my ear. I looked round and there was a huge fireball right next to us in the sky. And there was nothing there before. And what appears out of the flames? The cage, that's what.
And that description sounds like the moment after the man was beamed instantaneously through space.
It's mind-blowing, isn't it? That's the 20th century for you, I reckon.
So the people who actually saw the demonstration with their own eyes really believe they saw something miraculous taking place.
And from amid the smoke...
No, that's not right.
Wilhelm? Oh, yeah, yeah. And from amid the smoke, a cage appeared out of nowhere.
Hold it! Hold it! Right, I'm gonna love pressing this little boy. So you're saying that you witnessed the actual moment that the instantaneous kinesis took place?
During this stay in London, I have seen many extraordinary things. The Great Exhibition itself, This instantaneous kinesis, big explosions, the British courtrooms, and strange creatures. Sorry, strange creatures? Yeah, you, a most unusual creature from the East. Oh, yes, but I see princes wearing masks every day. What? Oh, yes, but I see princes wearing masks every day of the week. Did you also see the moment that the cage materialized, Mr. Loon? No, I did not see the explosion myself. However, the cage, it fell from the sky like a stone and crashed into the crystal tower.
Hold it!
Hold it. Did you see that actually happen? No, in reality I did not. I saw after it hit the tower. There was a grand confusion around the stage. I ran to see what had happened. I was terrorized by the idea that one of my balloons had crashed. I suppose they are his livelihood. But when I looked up at the sky, all my precious balloons were still there. I saw it though. I saw it slam into the tower. After all, I am a detective now. Then tell us what you saw, Inspector Lestrade. Inspector Lestrade? That's what I like to hear.
Gina is one of the best recurring defendants. Gina is just awesome.
I didn't get a good look inside the cage, but no one went near it after it crashed into the tower.
So it's possible his body was placed in the cage while it was dead.
Hold it!
Hold it. Was it you who gave the order to keep people away? Aye? Use your head, Odo. How could it have been me? I was up in a blame, weren't I? Right. So, because I weren't available, it was the boss who had to leg it over there. He was getting shoved and kicked all over by the panicking spectators as he tried to seal off the scene. It was a real sight to behold, I can tell ya. Amazing.
Poor Inspector Gregson. It's not like it should be the apprentice's job to do the dirty work or anything.
So anyway, I couldn't see the cage with that well, because I couldn't see the cage that well because of all the smoke. And I didn't really want to see, to be honest. I was scared out of my wits.
Keep it together, Inspector. Prosecution really is asserting that the demonstration was genuine. What if it was actually some kind of switch-around trick instead? That would mean that the victim was never actually on the stage in the first place. The two explosions would have thrown everyone watching into a panic for sure. I think I need to find out more about exactly what people saw at the time.
It was an incident, a terrible... Uh-oh.
Hold it!
Wilhelm? Yeah, this is what I know. I saw it happen.
No, I can't do the fucking German voice. It just turns into like a mixture.
That's better.
Excuse me!
Excuse me. As the gods, does your memory of the day differ?
My teacher at the elementary school said that when you meet someone for the first time, you should always use their full name.
Yes, what was it again?
Wilhelm Gottfried Sigmund Ormstein.
Just the four names then? I have 5. The point is, do you have something to say? Something to add in response to Detective Gina Lestrade's last remark, perhaps?
Oi, get it right, Otto. It's Inspector Lestrade.
What did I say? Oh. Why does everyone have a problem with how I address them at the moment?
That is not what I saw.
Oh?
Yeah, there was a speckled explosion, and it was right beside our balloon. That is true. But I'm sure. Which is what I said, isn't it? 1 minute there was nothing there, and the next there was a massive explosion. My teacher at the elementary school said that when someone else is speaking, if you are rude enough to interrupt, you will have the most awful life imaginable.
Are all Bohemians brought up to be so full of joy?
Just before the second explosion happened next to our balloon, I clearly witnessed a green balloon flying in the sky.
A green balloon?
Aye? You what? I never saw nothing like that. Well, I did. I saw it, and you can't say I didn't. I will complain to the council. I will cry and scream. My testimony is the truth. I am Bohemian Prince. You cannot say this lie. That is not allowed. Sir, playing the blatant royalty card, are ya? Typical.
Says the orphan who likes to remind people she works for Her Majesty's police.
In that case, young man, I ask you to amend your formal testimony. In the interest of cordial national relations between Great Britain and Bohemia,
It was not the sky that exploded, it was a green balloon that was next to ours at the time.
We're gonna have to say that there was this green balloon that was blown up, thus dropping the cage. And forget about the stage is separate, because obviously it's not actually happening. So there's this balloon that pops and that drops the thing into the tower, right? The green balloon, though, was a hot air balloon. The hot air balloon was supposed to be accounted for by our learned... Well, he's not learned, he's... Oh, fuck. Lots was his name. Yeah, so he said, like, oh, none of my head balloons had popped. But I bet you he had, like, some secret dealing in the background as part of making the trick happen.
hold it!
Hold it! A green balloon, you say? Are you sure about that?
Of course, I am sure. I am proud Bohemian Prince. All these questions are making me boring.
I think you mean bored?
Ah, English is very annoying. The language of my countrymen is far superior. Ragazzo, it is very wrong to lie. Lie? Flying balloons never explode. For the same reason that the planets never explode. It is logical.
Please tell me that doesn't mean logical.
If you insult me, you insult all of Bohemia. Madai. I will have army come and shoot all of your stupid balloons out of the sky. All of them.
Loon, not lots.
Here you are, your highness.
If only all international incidents were so easily resolved. Now that peaceful relations have been restored here in the courtroom, perhaps we could return to the testimony. Did you also see the moment that the cage materialized, Mr. Loon?
No, I did not see the explosion myself. However,
Somebody used that crossbow to pop the balloon, and the balloon was made of that green fabric that we discovered. It's not a contradiction, but... Do I present it here? Or do I present it here?
Objection!
Objection! Mr. Loon, in your testimony, you said that all 3 of the balloons you had operating at the time were undamaged.
See, that is correct. If they had been caught in explosions, it would have been terrible.
I wonder if you might know what this is.
Ah, I think it may be. See, part of a balloon, a burnt piece of the fabric of the envelope.
Sorry, the envelope?
Pardon, that is a large round part of the balloon which becomes filled with hot air. It is made from a very thick fabric lined with rubber. You do not want it to rip when you are in the sky.
Just as I thought. This piece of cloth was found near the experimentation stage. In other words, as Master Gotts testified, the green balloon did explode that day. It went pow.
Hey!
If all the balloons in the sky above the experimentation stage belonged to you, Mr. Loon, then your statement that they were all undamaged clearly contradicts the evidence.
No!
If a balloon exploded that day, why didn't the man say so?
Yeah, but everyone on board was killed.
Oh no, having just spent 10 old pounds.
Seems to me like those things crash 50% of the time anyway.
Objection. The instantaneous kinesis did occur, but after the explosion on the stage, the point of materialization shifted to a location occupied by a balloon, causing the balloon to explode. Yes, eminently plausible. An unfortunate traffic accident, as it were, but it changes nothing about the pertinent facts.
This I cannot accept.
Why not, Mr. Loon?
You are suggesting that I am a liar? That a person died in a balloon incident?
There's no need to get fired up, Mr. Loon. The victim was the sole fatality that day.
That's right, and I prove it. Both a balloon is not a liar. There is no such balloon in the sky. It is non-possible. Possible.
You're saying it's impossible? Why?
This court has more important matters to discuss than the number of balloons that were operating that day.
Objection.
Objection. But we can't ignore the fact that nobody appears to have known anything about this other balloon until now. My lord, the defense calls for further testimony from Mr. Loon.
I concur. There is clearly more to the truth here than meets the eye. It's imperative that we clear up the issue of this phantom balloon, I feel. Witness, You will give a supplementary testimony about the balloons that you were operating at the exhibition.
Ah, grazie, my lord. As I said, Balthazar Loon is no liar. Every balloon I had in the sky landed safely. All three of my balloons were carrying passengers. If they fell to the ground in an explosion, what a catastrophe! But you can't get away from the fact that a burnt-up bit of cloth was found at the scene, can ya? The coppers at the yard reckon that it was probably some debris thrown from the explosion on the stage. This stupid ragazzo is mistaken. My balloons have the red and blue zigzag stripes anyway.
So you were certain that the balloon this child saw was not one belonging to you?
See, exactement. Even if he even saw the balloon in the first place. I do not like the sound of it. It is very bad for business. I have a good mind to sue the land of Bohemia. If you attack us, we will fight back. It will be war, all out war.
What's happened to all-out war? Mr. Loon certainly doesn't appear to be lying. But that doesn't change the fact that the testimony and the evidence are contradictory here. If the defense is unable to find fault with the witness's statements, the court must consider them the truth. Think long and hard on that, my learned friend. The situation has clearly changed now. I have to get to the bottom of what happened here, no matter what it takes.
Counsel, you may now cross-examine the witnesses.
It wasn't his balloon. It was some secret governmental thing, some plot, like, well, maybe not governmental, because you know the government were the ones, you know, who are trying to find who to give their money to. So it was some sort of setup, and you know, you go pow there, and then you go pow there with the balloon, and it's not his balloon, it's someone else's balloon. Mr. Loon's balloons. Oh my God, Balthazar balloon, B-loon. Yeah. Wow.
As I said, B-loon is no liar. If every balloon I had in the sky landed safely.
Hold it! Hold it! You couldn't just have forgotten one, maybe?
Signora, I might not notice if I was given 100 lentils and one was missing. But we are talking about 3 enormous balloons. Do you believe I could make a mistake about something so grand and expensive?
I took the liberty of having Inspector Gregson check this gentleman's warehouse. I have the report here. It clearly says a total of 3 balloons.
It would appear that no mistake has been made then.
Surely Miss Lestrade could have been sent for such a menial task.
What? May? I'll tell you what I told the boss. East End kids like me can only count up to 2. Obviously that ain't true. But the boss bought it and said he'd have to go himself in that case.
That's brilliant.
All 3 of my balloons.
Hold it! Hold it. It would be quite a catastrophe if they all fell to the ground for any reason, I would think. On that note, Mr. Loon, tell me, what is it that keeps these balloons in the sky?
Are you an idiot? Sorry? That is like asking, why does a candle burn bright? It burns bright because it burns bright. And a balloon flies because it flies. What else? That must be Italian for I don't know. If my grandma had wheels, she would be a bike. If my nonna had a wheel. There are two types of flying balloons, hot air balloons and gas balloons. Hot air balloons work on the principle of hot air being less dense than cold air. Whereas gas balloons derive their lift by using a gas that is lighter than air. See, and my balloons were filled with a magic gas, I believe. Hydrogen. Lighter than air, but highly explosive. Explosive. Explosive.
Good lord!
I do not permit the smoking of the cigarettes on any of my balloons. The magic gas does not like a fire. Even a small spark of static electricity could cause the entire balloon to explode. So what is the matter with you, senor? All that comes out of your mouth is explosion! Explosion! I tell you, my balloons are perfectly safe. They have to be, or I cannot eat. None of my balloons exploded this day. I am completely sure. But if you still say that is what happened, you must show me the proof. Alright, so Mr. Balloon had 3 balloons in the air that day. If none of them were damaged, then what was the one that exploded? But you can't get away from... Hold it! Hold it! I was surprised to find the piece of fabric still at the scene, actually. Didn't you search the area surrounding the stage for clues? Nah, I'm not into picking stuff up off the ground, mate. Aren't you used to, like, picking up spare change off the ground while you're looking for a target in the old days? Always works out way better diving into people's pockets instead. Well, I guess you answered my question. So much for the new career path. Mind you, the boss was on his hands and knees picking up all kinds of rubbish off the floor. Thing is though, the cage went crashing into the crystal tower, didn't it? So that's where most of the investigating was going on. Even so, I would have thought that someone from Scotland Yard would have gathered it up as evidence. Cool, listen to you. You stumble across a bit of balloon and suddenly you're the best investigator in the world. Pardon? Well, you ain't got a badge, have ya? Like this one. I could arrest you with this if I wanted to. I could arrest you with this if I wanted to. I wouldn't put it past her. Come to think of it, there was some talk of some scorching on the ground at a meeting we had about the investigation. Hold it! There was considerable damage to the stage and the surrounding area, wasn't there? Yeah, some of the coves what were watching the experiment were caught in the blast and injured. Good job the old contraption didn't keel over, eh? I hadn't even considered that. It seems that there was great panic after the incident occurred. Nevertheless, the police shouldn't have missed a torn piece of envelope from a balloon. Inspector Gregson can expect repercussions. Like me swiping all of his fish and chips, eh? Man's sole pleasure. None of this matters. That scrap balloon envelope means nothing. Niente. This stupid ragazzo is mistaken. My balloons have red and blue zigzag stripes anyway.
Hold it!
Hold it. You mean the colour is wrong? Si, signor. I do not have any green balloons in my warehouse. And yet a piece of green cloth was found at the scene, and it's unmistakably from a balloon. Well, I do not know how that's gonna be. For the sake of argument, let's say that a green balloon did explode above the stage. You couldn't therefore conclude that it happened on the day in question. Why not? There have been recreational balloon flights over Hyde Park operating from before the Great Exhibition. One could have exploded on some earlier date. Unfortunate, as I'm sure you would agree.
You believe that it may have been from some earlier balloon accident that predates the exhibition?
Si, exactamente, as the signora says, it is not from one of my balloons. It's clearly this little ragazzo from Bohemia is mistaken about what he saw. If you come to my warehouse, you will see my three bellissimi balloons, all present and correct. Bellissimi. Bellissimi. Bellissimo. Oh, it's yeah. Wait. Bellissimo and bellissima are beautiful because it's gendered. Bellissimo is the absolute superlative of bello, a masculine adjective that one can translate in numerous ways. I've already verified Mr. Loon's annual business reports, and he's had the same number of balloons for a year now.
Well, as thorough as ever, Lord Van Dyke's disarmingly so.
In that case, is the young boy just imagining things? No, of course not. As I thought, Mr. Loon's testimony just doesn't quite add up. The young Bohemian boy claims to have seen another, fourth balloon. But Mr. Loon vehemently... Isn't vehemently a valid way to pronounce vehemently? Let me check that. Vehemently? Vehemently. Vehemently, yeah, it is vehemently, not vehemently. Have I been pronouncing that wrong my whole life? Vehemently. Vehemently denies the possibility. And it's hard to imagine that the man in charge could be mistaken about the number that were in the air. Still, this inconsistency must tell us something, I'm sure. As I said, Balthazar's Loon is no liar.
Hold it!
Archer! What did he even just say?
Excuse me!
Excuse me. Is something wrong, Master Gotts? It's Master Wilhelm Gottsreich of Sigismund Ormstein.
It was on the tip of my tongue. You were on the tip of my tongue.
Yeah, something is very wrong. I know what I saw. There was green balloons there. I swear it. I swear all over Bohemia. You can speak as much about a language as you like, but it changes nothing. If you do not have evidence, ragazzo, then I must tell your parents to punish you, eh?
Perhaps we'll let the judge decide when it comes to punishments.
Evidence. Evidence? What is this evidence?
Give a simple example, young man. A photograph, for instance, some tangible proof of what you claim.
Well, why didn't you say so sooner? I have the photograph here.
Oh, gracious!
What? I had not been up in the balloon for a little while, so I was very excited. I took lots and lots of photos.
No, that's fucking hell. Italian is just too easy that I can't do anything else.
Yeah, I took lots and lots of photographs of the Crystal Tower, of the Bohemian exhibit, of the streets of London, of the hotel cellar, the balloon.
No, fuck, it's so easy to just go into fucking Italian.
Of the streets of London, of the hotel cellar, of the balloon. Of the balloon. Of the balloon.
And the instantaneous kinesis experiment? Did you take a picture of that?
Yeah, one picture.
Really? You did take one?
But all I wanted was a ride in the balloon. In a balloon. I was not interested in boring experiments.
Never mind that. Can you show us the photograph?
Of course. And then you will see. You will see that I am not lying. That I really did see a green balloon.
Black and white.
Well, I see you are all too shocked to speak.
Yes, I think shocked is indeed the word, young man.
He said it was striped. Where's the stripe lines?
Yeah, perhaps you cannot
Oh, fucking hell.
Oh yeah, perhaps you cannot see that this was a green balloon from this photograph, but that is not my fault. That is the fault of the stupid person who made the camera. Ah, what?
with fucking umlauts. That is one very bohemian sounding cry. Who knew that you could cry with umlauts?
Wah, wah.
Well, I need to look at wait. A umlaut. Phony. No. It's not called a phoneme. It's called a phonic. Ah. Okay, it's ah. Ah. Wah. Ah. Ah. Glass. Ah. Ah. Wah. Linguistics is weird.
Very well, the court will accept this photograph as evidence.
It's not my fault. It's the fault of the person who made the camera.
Well, never mind. I'm sure you have plenty of wonderful sepia memories to take home with you. There's a lot going on here. Right? A lot going on here. There's Hairbrain. This cage looks different than the cage that he was in. And this guy looks different. Right? This smoke, yeah, the whole thing was designed to be a trick. Right? These blast out smoke just to cover the bullshit. Here we see an arrow being shot at the balloon, which isn't striped and has nobody in it other than these bags of weight. And so where was this balloon discovered? I mean, the basket, sorry. My bad. Okay, this is very interesting. In any case, when exactly did you take that photograph?
Well, it was on the day of the big explosion.
You don't say.
When I pressed the shutter release, there was this very loud bang. And a hot wind rushed over my face.
That means this photograph was taken a split second before the explosion occurred.
Well, if you ask me, this black and white photograph changes nothing. I could not give the flying fig.
Lovely language you've picked up.
As I said.
Bam, 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 ba-dum, ba-da-bam, ba-da-bam, bam, ba-bam, ba-da-bam, ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba. Okay, one statement at a time. He's chanting the truth. There we go. Objection. Unfortunately, the photograph Master Gotts took can't tell us the color of the balloon, but it can tell us something else, something crucially important. What? What? It shows that the balloon pictured. Oh, fucking hell. It shows that the pictured balloon wasn't carrying any passengers.
Ah, my goodness, you're right. But surely all the balloons would have been carrying passengers. There would be no sense in it otherwise.
See, they are for a pleasure, for seeing the view. My balloons will only fly with passengers.
Which tells us that the pictured balloon isn't one of them. So when the incident occurred that day, there was a fourth balloon in the skies above the experimentation stage. The mysterious green balloon.
I know nothing, niente. I can only tell you one thing. If this balloon was not carrying passengers, then it was not one of mine.
Objection!
Objection. There are illegal tradesmen everywhere you care to look. Clearly, one such entrepreneur decided to capitalize on the opportunity presented by the Great Exhibition and managed to operate balloon flights on Mr. Loon's patch without him realizing.
And yet nobody was in the balloon, Van Zykes. He's a criminal entrepreneur who flies balloons illegally and doesn't even get passengers to pay for them. Yes, Mr. Van Zykes, I'm sure that makes sense. See, the competition, it is trying to steal my profits. I did not notice because of the experimento that went wrong on the stage. This fourth balloon exploded at the very same moment that Mr. Asmund was beamed from the stage below. Right, so them scraps that fell to the ground after and left them scorch marks, they didn't come from the stage at all. It was bits of the balloon raining down. But because no one was in it, it didn't get no attention. A mysterious fourth balloon carrying no passengers, silently floating above the experimentation stage.
Objection!
Objection! This photograph shows us nothing more. A stray balloon carrying no one and operated by some rogue trader. Clearly it has nothing to do with the case.
Its relevance does elude me, I must say.
The court has already seen sufficient evidence and heard ample testimony already. The prosecution calls for this trial to be concluded. Really? Have we really got to the truth yet? No, I can't let this opportunity slip away. The jurors' minds are made up, and not in our favour. What else can this photograph tell us? Is there nothing more we can learn from it? There's more!
Objection!
Objection! Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, wait! Please don't give your decisions yet. The photograph from Master Gox may well be hiding one more vital clue.
What's that?
Oh, a vital clue.
Objection!
Objection. We're well past the point of mere possibilities. It's time for definitives now, so tell the court. What exactly does this alleged clue in the photograph prove? We can reasonably assume that the pictured balloon was destroyed in the searing heat of the explosion. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it was not my fault. 1 minute. Evidently. Why is pressing escape not doing... Oh, it's... Let me check if there's not something I'm supposed to do during this trial. Probably not the best time to get distracted, but... Because the birdcage from the kinesis machine materialized in the sky where it had been flying. And the balloon, being filled with flammable hydrogen, instantly and explosively ignited.
Objection!
Objection. No, that's not what happened. What? It would appear...
It would appear that this photograph requires closer examination. Counsel for the defense will highlight the location of this alleged clue in the photograph for the court.
Of course, my lord. If you look closely, it's plain enough to see, and what's shown is linked to another piece of evidence we have, in a way that leads to an unbelievable conclusion. A clue that heavily suggests the real reason the balloon exploded is...
Take that!
Take that! The timing of this photograph can only be described as miraculous. If you look, you'll notice there's a bright white line that appears to point directly at the balloon. Most likely a ray of light caught incidentally on the film.
I'm afraid I can see nothing of the sort.
If you look with a magnifying glass, my lord, it becomes clear what the nature of this bright line really is.
Goodness, what is that?
Undeniably some flash of light, yes.
Oh golly, do you think it might be lightning?
But it couldn't have been a finer day.
Oh, I believe we may be looking at fire.
A bolt of fire heading straight for the balloon, like an arrow. Indeed, even... Indeed, even to my aging eyes, it would appear to be some flame of some sort. My word! Are you suggesting this flame struck the hydrogen gas that filled the balloon?
Objection!
Objection! That's absurd! The balloon would have been 60 feet above the ground at the time. No flame could possibly have reached such a height.
Objection!
Objection. Actually, it's my opinion that the particular piece of evidence found at the scene reveals how this is exactly what did happen. What evidence? If such
If such evidence exists, Counsel, then for goodness' sake, present it, man. Which evidence explains this mysterious streak of flame that appears to be headed directly for the balloon? Take that!
Take that! The true nature of the curious slim streak of light is revealed by this.
A curious answer.
Oh, fuck me. I need to examine it and get it to update and say it's a fucking crossbow. Ah, there's some sort of lever here. Fuck me. How did I not do this during the investigation? What the? What is this? It looks like a cross between the bow and the gun. Bow gun. I think it's probably used for the same thing, too. Fucking hell. How did I manage not to see that in the investigation? It looks like you wind this around in order to draw the bowstring back and create tension. You must be able to fire arrows with a huge amount of force using this device then. In fact, I would imagine it's far more accurate and powerful than a Japanese longbow. Ugh, I really had no idea what I was picking up when I spotted this at the exhibition grounds. It looks somewhat like a piece of firework, but whereas fireworks dazzle their audience, You fizzle out in a remarkably disappointing way. Ugh, insults dressed up in colourful metaphors are still insults. But anyway, this firework display isn't over yet.
If such evidence exists, Counsel, then for goodness sake present it.
Take that! This was found hidden at the foot of a small ornamental tree near the scene.
Good Lord! Is that a crossbow?
An arrow dipped in oil and set alight could have been shot from this weapon, sending a flaming arrow straight into the hydrogen-filled balloon.
Are you suggesting that the crossbow was used to deliberately...
Blimey, you're right. That streak of light in the photo looks just like an arrow, doesn't it? Then, the explosion of the balloon, well, it was... very likely the result of a flaming arrow from this crossbow igniting the hydrogen gas inside it.
No! No!
Oh dear, oh dear. Counsel, this is an extraordinary supposition.
If the aim was to cause the balloon to explode, the shooter could have used a gun, of course. However, there's an obvious reason why that would have been out of the question.
The noise of the discharge, of course.
That's right. By using a crossbow, the projectile could be fired at the balloon silently. Well, yeah. If someone had shot a gun in the exhibition grounds, it would have caused a real panic. But with the big explosion, there was a very big panic anyway, no? I don't like this. I should be pleased to have found a plausible new explanation for all this, but something feels wrong.
Objection!
Objection!
Do you understand the implications of what you're saying, my Nipponese friend?
If a flaming arrow did indeed hit the balloon, then obviously it would have exploded. And if the birdcage appeared from the cloud of smoke that ensued... What? Wait a minute! What are you really saying here? I don't get it. Was the birdcage beamed up into the sky after all, or what?
My goodness me!
Ah, now I understand. That's what that sinking feeling is all about. I think there's a good chance that the birdcage was actually concealed inside the balloon all along.
What? Did I hear that? Just hear that correctly, Counsel?
There's no going back now. The horse has bolted. Let's assume, as I said, that the birdcage was hidden inside the green balloon from the start. Hang on with this picture. What do you mean hidden inside the green balloon? That's ridiculous. And from this it makes it look like the basket isn't big enough to lie him flat in the cage. But maybe that's what it means. On stage, when the experiment was started, the birdcage in the instantaneous kinesis machine disappeared in a cloud of smoke. At that moment, the flaming arrow was fired from the ground, causing the green balloon to explode and drawing the attention of the spectators to the sky above their heads. From amid the smoke, the hidden birdcage then appeared, to fall down and crash into the crystal tower. I think you'll all agree it's entirely plausible that what I've just described is the real truth behind the miraculous experiment carried out that day.
This, Good grief!
Objection!
Objection! This is ludicrous. What you've described is no science experiment. It's child's play, a contemptible display of stage magic.
Both Mr. Sholmes and Iris said that the experiment was a scientific impossibility. In which case, this is the only way to explain what happened that day.
And in any case, the victim's body was found inside the birdcage in the Crystal Tower. If the instantaneous kinesis didn't take place, how do you explain that?
If I may put a word, as I... if I may put in a word, as a man of magic myself. Such apparent discrepancies can be easily explained by some simple deception. Juror number 3. All that would be needed is a doppelganger. Someone who looks very similar to the victim, Mr. Asman. And having this other man appear on the stage in front of the show, the body double. Ah, yes, of course. So in fact, Mr. Asman must have been inside the birdcage that was concealed inside the balloon right from the start.
Objection!
Objection! That balloon would have been filled with hydrogen. Anything hidden inside it would have been scattered to the four winds when it exploded. No one would ever have embarked on such a risky venture. Not necessarily. The explosive force of the balloon gas would very much depend upon the mixture ratio.
Juror number 4. Oh my god, the jurors are actually helping me for once. They're not stupid.
Flying balloons are rarely filled with pure hydrogen, but a mixture of other gases, such as helium as well. Helium on its own doesn't explode, but by controlling the gas mixture ratio, the explosive force can be altered. The mixture ratio? Fucking hell, I should have done maths at university. Obviously, the victim would have suffered some burns. That would be unavoidable. But not to such an extent as to render this whole obscene charade impossible.
So everything that happened can be explained, logically and scientifically. The explosion that engulfed the stage at the start of the experiment was no accident. It was all a part of an elaborate deception to make it appear that instantaneous kinesis had occurred.
Well, goodness me.
And if we accept that this is what happened, it means that the victim, Mr. Asman, was never present on the public experimentation stage to begin with. In short, he couldn't have been killed by the defendant, who was on stage in full view the entire time. This will be very hard for the prosecution to counter. Lord Van Zykes can't credibly maintain that the Professor Harebrain is a suspect now.
Objection. He could have just killed him before he was placed in the balloon.
It's going to be Harebrain, right? Objection! Mr. Naruhodo, I appreciate your efforts. Thank you. Professor, you can stop now. Just keep your mouth shut, please. Sorry?
What's all this about, Mr. Harebrain?
You didn't even call him Professor. I, Albert Harebrain, hereby confess that it was me who stabbed Mr. Odie Asman. Yes, it was me, with my faithful friend and partner, Andrew the Screwdriver. But what are you doing? He doesn't want his scam to be revealed.
Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Well, 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 Defendant, explain this sudden confession.
Objection! Objection! Professor Harebrained, what are you talking about? It's what I've said all along. I must protect my hypothesis and my precious machine. You stand there and claim it was all a trick, all an elaborate prank, but where's your proof? No, you'd have to examine the machine if you wanted to prove it, but then it would all be over. My beautiful hypothesis would be laid bare. I mean, the indignity of it. It's clear that you drew the plan to the experiment, but you didn't actually build it. It's quite conceivable that you were duped, Professor. If you'll let me just... I can prove... Barak! Yes. I'll cooperate. I'll do whatever you say. I swear it. So please, ensure that the Special Dispensation for Scientific Equipment Act is adhered to and protect my creation. Pray forgive the discourtesy of filling my hallowed chalice at this critical juncture. Here's to my learned Nipponese friend. And his upcoming attempt to clarify the defence's position in light of the accused's confession. Do you intend to formally assert that the experiment was nothing more than a conjuring trick? Because the moment you do, the Special Dispensation for Scientific Equipment Act that protects the professor's invention will cease to apply. The prosecution will then demand a rigorous examination of the machinery involved in order to establish the truth. However, if you acknowledge that the machine is genuine and instrumental in the victim's murder, any chance of investigating will be crushed, and the confidentiality of the professor's hypothesis preserved. And he'll be declared guilty.
Well, counsel, what is the defence's official position on this matter?
What Professor Harebrained, my client, actually asked of me was to prove that the explosion on the stage was an accident and protect the secrecy of his hypothesis. But there's no way to do that without implying the professor's guilt. Do I protect my client's life by asserting his innocence, or do I uphold my client's request but see him condemned? This is such a good little way to make a... This is a case 3 level twist, like a case 3 level drama, you know? And it's so unique as well. The client has a genuine interest, but his interest conflicts with... I mean, you obviously have to assert his innocence, but it does feel slightly wrong, doesn't it? Just like in the last game when you point out that McGilded could have messed with the evidence, right? Either way, I can't avoid betraying his trust. You've been silent long enough. Isn't talking your trade, my learned friend? Or has all knowledge of English escaped your confused Nipponese mind? He doesn't do this pose much. Mr. Naruhodo! There's no escape here. I have to make a choice. But it's an impossible one. I have to give up on something. But what? defense asserts that the defendant's instantaneous kinesis machine was in fact... Ah! No, I can't say it. My client placed his faith in me. I can't just let him down.
What must I give up on is not the question you have to ask yourself here. It's what can I protect?
Oh. That is the exact opposite of what I expected.
What must I give up on is not the question you have to ask yourself here. It's what can I protect? Hello again, Mr. Naruhodo. It's been far too long. Sato-san?
You know, here's a funny... This is like such an irrelevant fact, but I was listening to this part of the soundtrack, Susato's objection theme, and someone in the comments said, "Oh, this is such a shame that this theme plays only 3 times." And while playing the first case, I thought to myself, I counted how many times it played, and it only played twice, and I thought, did that guy in the comments just like miscount? But no, they made good use of it here.
But what are you...
Yeah. My first Susato takedown in 6 months. That'll be time to talk later, Mr. Naruhodo. For now, we must concentrate on the task at hand. Which is working out not what I have to give up on, but what I can protect. Professor Hairbrain? Oh, yes. Yesterday you told me that science is the pursuit of truth. Well, my job is to pursue the truth too. Yes, of course. And personally, I believe that you didn't stab Mr. Asman. I think you've come to realize something yourself too, haven't you? That your experiments in the machine you built with the victim are questionable. The truth behind that is what we must both pursue now.
So, you finally opened your eyes.
What?
And as for you, Albert, you can't ignore this any longer.
Oh.
Having heard my learned friend's assertion, don't you have something to say?
Baroque. Lord Van Zykes. Gosh, I've never heard him speak that way before. In truth, there is one thing. Something I've remembered that's irrelevant. What? That happened just before I began the experiment. I saw a man near the stage. A man holding that crossbow.
I beg your pardon. I beg your pardon.
Professor, did the man have any distinguishing features? What did he look like? Tall. Taller than me. And and thin. Thinner than me. With straight hair. Straighter and whiter than mine.
No. No.
The winking is so weird. Like, why?
I mean, the only person who could possibly fit that description is this dude.
Let me see. One less lens than me too. A monocle. A rather stylish black monocle. But one thing in particular will help to positively identify the man. You see, I know him very well. After all, he's the engineer who built my invention.
What? He built the machine?
That's right. Mr. Asman introduced me to him a year ago. He's a man by the name of Enoch Drebber.
Now that is a name that I've seen in the soundtrack. I'm not gonna jump to conclusions because I've like seen various screenshots and such like.
Enoch Drebber? Does this name mean something? Members of the jury seem flustered.
Not a name any scientist wishes to hear. The man's an abomination.
Not a name any conjurer wishes to hear either. Who on earth is he?
I'm afraid this is the first tale of nature that I've heard in scientific circles in connection with that name. Oh, I'm afraid this isn't the first tale of this nature I've heard in scientific circles in connection with that name. There's talk of flamboyant experiments that turn out to be nothing but stage trickery in the end. Obviously, the rascal is after government's research grant money.
When magicians are in need of money, I have heard many of them were resorting to underhanded tactics. Some acquaintances of mine with experience of such things have mentioned Enoch Drebber's name before.
The man is both an engineer and a magician. Yes, we're dealing with an unparalleled confidence trickster here. That's Enoch Drebber for you.
So it's true then. My invention, my great machine, it was just a grand illusion. Considering what we've just heard about Mr. Drebber's character, I'm sorry to say that it sounds increasingly likely. Even though nobody else believed it, I wanted to. I wanted to believe that that machine would function exactly as my hypothesis predicted.
Which is why you were so opposed to it being investigated, I presume.
I knew that if the machine was examined in detail, its construction would give away my hypothesis. Obviously, I didn't want that to happen, but at the same time, I knew that if it was found to be nothing more than a trick, or than a work of deception, then everything I'd worked towards, all my research, all my dreams, my whole life would be over. I was terrified at the prospect.
So you really had no idea then, did you? About the true nature of the machine that was built, and the true nature of Mr. Drebber.
I never questioned anything. I didn't want to question it.
It's entirely possible that Mr. Asmund and Mr. Drebber were working together to use you as a means of fraudulently acquiring the research grant money.
When I announced my invention to the crowds that day, it was the finest moment of my career. I pulled all the levers and turned all the dials in exactly the way Drebber had described. When the smoke suddenly started billowing out, I panicked. I didn't know what was happening. But I really don't know how the whole illusion was made to work. I don't know anything anymore.
Let me confirm one final point with you, Professor. You now consent to the prosecution submitting the necessary paperwork to release your invention from the protection afforded by the Special Dispensation for Scientific Equipment Act.
Yes, please go ahead. I'm very sorry.
It would appear that we shall have to suspend proceedings for the remainder of the day now. Lord Van Sykes.
My lord.
The court has newly been made aware of another party whose involvement in this matter is critical.
Yes, Mr. Drebber.
Gather information about the man. If possible, I should like him served with a subpoena.
With pleasure, my lord.
Now, counsel for the defense.
Yes, my lord.
When we reconvene, I shall be looking for one thing and one thing alone from you. Evidence that the defendant is innocent of the crime for which he presently stands accused.
I understand.
Good. In that case, this court is adjourned until tomorrow morning.
It's going to end up being Harebrain's word versus Drebber's. Which is, again, not a situation that comes up in Ace Attorney. Where you just have two people whose testimonies just battle against each other, and there's really not a clear way forward in that sense. I guess there have been some, actually. But, like, not to this extent, where, like, Drebber is saying... Oh, no, Drebber's got to admit that it was bullshit. He's got to say that Harebrain knew it was bullshit, and that the murdering was not part of the plan, and that he murdered the victim on purpose. And he'll say, like, well, how do you think, you know, of course he worked with me building it, like, of course he knew. That was a really good trial.
Mr. Naruhodo.
Ah, yes?
I'm so sorry. I was wrong. You were right. I tricked you. You trusted me. I dragged you into my mess. Oh, how did it ever come to this? I'm so sorry.
Did you really have no idea, Professor? About what Mr. Drebber was really up to, I mean? about what he was really constructing.
Naturally. That machine was the embodiment of my hypothesis. All of my hopes and dreams. I had complete faith in it.
Alright, in that case, I won't say any more. Now, sadly, the murder accusation against you still stands. So we must do as much investigation as we can before the trial resumes tomorrow.
Well, thank you for doing so much for me. I'm so sorry for arriving late this morning, Mr. Naruhodo.
Arriving late?
Didn't you receive my postcard? I wanted to let you know when I'd arrive.
Postcard? What postcard?
I hid it from you, Runo, so it would be a surprise. Well, did it work?
I was surprised, alright. Especially when she threw me to the ground.
Oh dear, I'm so sorry. I was just so happy to see you again that it sort of slipped out.
Maybe we could stick to more traditional displays of emotion in future.
Susie's train was late into London Victoria this morning, you see. But we made the coachman really whip the horses hard so she didn't miss the whole trial. I was watching from the gallery for a while, but in the end, I'm afraid I couldn't contain myself.
Well, I'm glad you didn't.
Oh,
Having you at my side in court gives me the strength I need to win. So, I'm, delighted to see you back in London.
oh, you're too kind, Mr. Naruhodo. I'm delighted to be here. I hope I can continue to be of service to you.
Of course. So, what's brought you back?
Also, Iris and I, we made sure the coach driver didn't look when I changed into my new costume that she made me.
Did Professor Mikutova not protest?
Let's save all that conversation for when we're back at home, shall we? You know, I've made one of my most special blends ever for this special occasion. Oh, Iris, how wonderful. I can't wait.
Susato-san was back in London. It's hard to describe how happy that made me feel at the time, but despite my elation, our tale was about to take yet another extraordinary turn. That was a fantastic trial. I'm glad I'm getting back into this game now. Like, from the way that that investigation dragged on, and from the way that that first testimony turned Hairbrain into a bit of an idiot, I'm really like back into it now. I'm feeling the drive to carry on. And that's where we end it. Sorry. Yeah. Check the stream lives, which it does. 2 hours 17. That's not bad. That was fantastic. Ba-da-bum-bum-bum, ba-dum-bum-bum, ba-da-bum-ba-da-ba-ba-ba. Well, well, well. That was fantastic. So let's do the this. Oh man. That trial also didn't have a closing argument, did it? Or rather, summation examination, right? Which was appropriate. There was no need. There was no need for one. It wouldn't have made sense, like, because this jury is clearly pretty competent. Well, there we go. We're back at it, and my voice has. I'm not going to say fully recovered because I did have a few hiccups. But I'm getting there. Whatever the fuck stupid virus I had has finally decided to piss off. Or rather, my immune system has decided to piss off and stop causing symptoms. Thank you for watching.